This is the first time for a number of years in which I've brought a poinsettia into the house. I love poinsettias. In fact, over the years, I've grown to love them so much that Christmas isn't Christmas really without a poinsettia. But say, this is the first one I've had for a number of years. And they've become every much a part of Christmas for me as the traditional Christmas tree, which I haven't had for many, many years. Saw this in the local garden centre the other day, and I didn't realise at first that they came with a freebie. The freebie's in here. It's a spider, and it's a spider which everyone has probably seen in their local garden centre, because this is a species which was introduced into the UK in the early 1990s and is now everywhere, but only in the warmer buildings of garden centres. This is the garden centre spider, Uloborus plumipes, and it's a cracking little thing. Shame there's no scent to poinsettias. Of course, the flowers are only tiny on poinsettias, right in the centre of these beautiful bright red bracts. I remember the first time I went to Tenerife and saw these growing as large bushes by the roadside, and in temperatures that were well in the 80s at the time. Quite magnificent and totally different to how you see them in the UK. Quite often these poor plants are left outside some large supermarket chain, and people not realising that you don't need much of a draft to kill poinsettias off. Always best to buy them from a proper garden centre, especially one that I have locally that actually produces these. You know then that they've not been stood outside in somewhere unsuitable, because that's why they generally drop all the leaves and are just left with a few of the red bracts by the time Christmas actually comes around. Apart from the obvious overwatering or underwatering, of course, but they are a beautiful plant, really are a beautiful plant. And even more beautiful when they come with a free spider. And Uloborus plumipes in here, which is actually quite small. I'll put some photos in to illustrate this chap. And I didn't realise that this is not the only Uloborus plumipes which is on this particular poinsettia. There's another one, there's a smaller one, and I dare say on the display of poinsettias in the garden centre yesterday there are many. But Uloborus plumipes is an interesting spider. Yet again, it's a spider which has come in from somewhere abroad. It's been brought into the UK via the horticultural plant trade, and it's done very, very well. There's one species which won't go anywhere outside the confines of a warm building or heated greenhouse. It's not going to rampage across the UK, although if you looked at a distribution map, if everybody went to their local garden centres, recorded this chap and put it on iRecord or whatever, then it would show a UK-wide range. Dillis and I went and looked for this sometime in 2010. There were no Nottinghamshire records that we knew of or that had been published, and we found it straight away within minutes of walking into the first garden centre we went to. Then we went to another garden centre and another and another and another, and I've continued to do the same, and every single garden centre has this spider. It's usually tucked away on the framework of something or some of the stands, in the window frames, occasionally on the plants like this, and it makes an orb web. Quite often that orb web can be vertical, but usually it's almost horizontal. And it makes a surprisingly large orb web for the size of the spider. And sometimes more noticeable than the actual spider itself is the egg sac, which is a very weird shaped egg sac. But this spider, with its distinctive sideways silhouette of a resting position, is very easy to spot in your local garden centre. It's been in every single garden centre that I've been to in Nottinghamshire. There may well be a couple that I haven't been to. Uloborus plumipes, it's now known as the garden centre spider. Occasionally you can see it in florists, sometimes even greengrocers. But it's always in the protection of a greenhouse or a heated building. It's a charming little thing with a distinctive shape, and when you're going to buy your poinsettia in a few weeks' time or a week's time, maybe you've already got one, go back again and have a look for Uloborus plumipes, the garden centre spider. It's not a big thing, never does get to be a big thing, but it's a lovely looking thing nonetheless, and it's widespread too. Another reason to perhaps thank the horticultural trade for, because this is an invasive species which doesn't do any damage. In fact, it's probably a help more than anything to keep all the invasive species in garden centres down a little bit. I love Uloborus.